Dear friend, welcome to my lecture. My lecture topic today is about Zhejiang economy. Being a Zhejiang resident, I am proud of Zhejiang's achievement and development, and I am proud of introduce Zhejiang economy to you. My lecture will divide it into two parts. The first is about the background of Zhejiang economy. Then the second part is Zhejiang economy. And our lecture will have two sections. Each section will last 90 minutes. This week is the first section. We will introduce the background of Zhejiang economy and a little bit general picture of Zhejiang economy. Then next week, we'll discuss details about Zhejiang economy. About Zhejiang economy, we know that Zhejiang is a part of China, and China is a part of the world. Today, we all live in the same world, the Earth village, and we're shopping from the global market. You may not visited Zhejiang, even you haven't been to China. However, when you want to buy something to ornament your Happy New Year festival, when you want to have a party with your friend, most probably you will buy something from Zhejiang. If you are lucky enough, you have been to China, then I am convinced that you must have kept in touch with Alipay. When you buy something, you do not need to pay the seller cash. You just scan the two-dimension bar, then the deal is made. If you want to buy something, you do not need to go to the department store. You do not need to go to the supermarket. You just visit Taobao. You just visit Taobao, visit Pinduoduo. Then you will make your shop easily, and you will find that the items you purchased will be quickly delivered to the address you have right on the order. And if you are a businessman, you are doing international business, I'm convinced that you must have used Alibaba. So, do you know where is Alibaba? Where is Taobao? And where is Alipay? Where are they located? They are located in Zhejiang province. So, you can see the picture, Alipay, Taobao, and Alibaba. So they are the name card of Zhejiang economy. So first, I will tell you about what we will discuss in my lecture. The outline like this. We generally have 8 small topics. First, Chinese economy, then mainly Zhejiang economy. Because Zhejiang economy is our topic, we will discuss our topic into several subtopics. The economy is equilibrium, about Zhejiang's industry cluster, about Zhejiang's vertical community development, about Zhejiang's external economic operation. And finally, we'll summarize that Zhejiang economy is a miracle in China, and we'll try to give some explanation about this miracle. First, about myself. So my name is Feng Tinghui. So I am an associate professor at School of Economics and Management in Zhejiang University of Science and Technology. I have done some social services. So I used to be the assistant to the CEO or the president from 2012 to 2014. I'm an assistant to the president of China Commodity City Group. It simplifies as CCC Group, which is located at Yiwu. And I also had been visiting scholar at University of Houston and University of Bridgeport. So if you have any questions about my topics, my discussions this week and next week, please feel free to contact me at my email address as displayed on the slide. So the first, as I said just now, Zhejiang economy is a part of Chinese economy. And Chinese economy is the background of Zhejiang economy. Besides that, Chinese economy is also a part of world economy. So the world economy is the background of Chinese economy. So in this table, you will find there the top 10 main economies in the world. The first is obviously is the United States. Then China is number 2. Number 3 you can find is Japan. Then you can find India is number 5. And number 10 is Canada. So read these data, these figures here. You'll find China is the second biggest economy in the world. However, it also it's also the biggest population country in the world. Therefore, if we divided the GDP by China's population, we have a GDP per capita in 2018, it is 10,173. And the GDP growth in China in 2018 is 6.6. So that's about the GDP. Generally, in economics, if we want to describe a country's economy, we use this index, GDP, GDP growth rate, and GDP per capita. It always can tell us something. So in the world, we have 2 big countries. The first is China, then India. And in this table, we made a comparison between the 2 countries about their GDP growth. We can see that in the last 10 years, the 2 countries almost keep the same GDP growth rate, with China a little bit higher than India. So the 2 countries are the biggest, are the very important economic power in the world. So we will make comparison later on other aspects. So about the external economic development. So we can see this table. This table is about the world's export and import. On this table, you will find in 2018 and 2019, China is the #1 exporter in the world. China's export occupied the world's total export 77% in 2008, and in 2019 the percentage is 13%. About the import, we can see that the United States is the biggest importer in the world, and China is the second biggest. This is about the external economic operations. Besides export and import, we also use FDI inflow to measure a country's external operation. Let's see FDI inflow. So this is the last 5 year FDI inflow, the database for data from the World Bank. The number one is the United States, and China is number 2 again. Only a little exception is in 2019, the United Kingdom is the second FDI host country. As I think it's because of Brexit. So let's make a brief summary about the brief picture of Chinese economy. So China is the biggest exporter, the second importer, and the second FDI host country in the world. And based on these statistical data, we can draw a conclusion that the world market is diversified and integrated. International economy needs the world to play an important role. So when we discuss about a country's economy, we must also discuss about its economic system. We have so many countries in the world. And different countries, they may have different economic systems. According to some research, we can divide it or differentiate the economic system according to 2 dimensions: property ownership and resource allocation. For property ownership, we mainly have public and private. For resource allocation, we have central plan and market mechanism. So if in a country its property is mainly owned by the public or by the state or by the central government, and its resource allocation is mainly by central plan, then we call this country has a socialism economic system. To the contrary, if a country's property ownership is mainly by private sector and its resource allocation is by market mechanism, then we call this country's economic system is capitalism. So in fact, in the world, we have fewer socialism and fewer pure capitalism. Most of the countries located between the 2 different systems. As regard to China, so China's economic system has changed from 1978. And today, China has a mixed economic system. So for ownership, the property ownership is mixed in China. In China, we have public-owned, collectively owned, and private-owned business and property. State, province, and city country levels, the government, they own and operate a business. And this public or state and city level government-owned business, they play a very important role in the field of public and critical important product and service. Well, the private business mainly focuses on the production of consumer product and service. For resource allocation mechanism, before 1978, China is mainly allocate its resources by a central plan, allocate the investment by central plan. Today, the resources are allocated both by central plan and market mechanism. Therefore, we said that China is a mixed economic system. So this is about the economic system. The second very important index when we discuss about a nation's, a country's economy. The third is about economic development. So in this table, we are given the last 10 years development index. So mainly GDP growth rate, and GDP per capita, and disposable income. So to China, for the last 10 years, we can see it keeps GDP growth higher than 6%. Of course, from the figure you can see that the GDP growth rate is decreasing. It's because the GDP itself is increasing. The basement is becoming larger and larger. And also, the World Bank has drawn some lines to help us to divide the countries in the world into 4 groups, namely high income, upper middle income, lower middle income, and low income. So this standard, or this line, is drawn in 2020. So according to this standard, remember last picture, last table, we know that China belongs to an upper middle income country. The fourth index for us to describe a country's economy is to know about its industrial structure. So we know that we have some revolutions, industrial revolution and informational revolution. So if a country, its GDP mainly consists of manufacturing industry, several decades ago, then we said that this country is an industrialized country. And today, after information revolution, we pay more attention to service industry. So according to the statistical report, the United Nations, they have their definitions about developed and developing countries. These definitions have using the standard of developed or developing according to an economic development and industrial levels or stage. All developed countries, yes, they are high-income countries, but the contrary do not hold, which means that not all the high-income countries are developed countries. Why? Because of the industrial structure. The developed countries, previously they are known as industrialized countries. And today, after information revolution, these countries have high weight of service industry in their economy. For example, 80% of the US GDP was generated by the service industry in 2019. Then how about China? So this is in the year 2019. You can see that China has the first industry 7%, and the second industry 39%, and the third industry 54%, compared with the United States, which is 80% in the third industry. So according to what we have discussed just now, we can see that the China is still a developing country. Then let's see the last index about regional development. Here is some select province in China in 2019 about their GDP population, GDP per capita, average salaries, import and export billions. So in this table, you will find the 8 select provinces are quite different. For GDP, the biggest province is Guangdong province. It's almost 10 times than Jilin province. And for GDP per capita, we will find that the highest is Beijing. And for average salary is also Beijing. And for import and export, it's Guangdong again. So you can find in this statistical data, different provinces has great differences. So let's see another index about regional development. It's population immigrant and emigrant. So when an area economy developing fast, most probably it will attract people. Last year, Zhejiang province is the first host for immigrants. It's around 1 million. Then Guangdong province, it attract 826,000. The first big 5 immigrant host province, most of them are developed areas in China. So, to the contrary, some provinces, they export population, they lose population. Shandong, Heilongjiang, Hubei, Jiangxi, and Jilin. So from the population movement, you will find that people are pursuing a better life by moving from one area to another areas. Because these developed areas, they have a developed economy. They have more opportunities. So let's summarize. In China, the regional development is disequilibrium in China. And Zhejiang GDP per capita is higher than the line drawn by World Bank. Zhejiang belongs to developed areas. And traditionally, China is divided into 4 parts. We have the coast areas, middle areas, western areas, and northern eastern areas. And these parts belong to developed areas, middle developed areas and developing areas. So according to the geographic location, so in fact they located from east to west, from south to north gradually. Since 1980s, as China's open door policy has been progressing, especially the coast areas especially Pearl River Delta region and Yangtze River Delta region, develop even faster. So Zhejiang is located in Yangtze River Delta area. So about Chinese economy, generally, Chinese economy is so let's summarize about the Chinese economy. For China, it has kept a high economic growth for almost 40 years. It is the big and important economic power in the world. However, China is still a developing country with a lower GDP per capita, lower developed service industry, lower economic efficiency, lower environmental quality, and disequilibrium regional development. So that's about Chinese economy. This is the background of Zhejiang economy. After we have discussed about Zhejiang economy's background, this is Chinese economy, we'll go to introduce you Zhejiang economy. So we said that Zhejiang economy is a miracle. Why we said Zhejiang economy is a miracle? Because formerly, Zhejiang province is a poor province in China. Its GDP mainly came from the first industry or from agriculture. But today, the picture is totally reshaped. For us to discuss about the Zhejiang economy, we will divide our discussion by the same method as we discussed in Chinese economy. I will give you a general picture first about the Zhejiang economy. Its GDP, its industrial structure, its regional development, its export and import. Then we'll give you a brief introduction about Zhejiang history. After that, we'll discuss some characteristics of Zhejiang economy. For example, equilibrium development. For equilibrium development, Zhejiang province has sharp characteristic. Its equilibrium has four aspects. The first, obviously, is regional development. Compared with the other provinces in China, almost all the areas in Zhejiang province, they keep the same GDP growth rate. The second is industrial equilibrium development. The third is vertical equilibrium development. And the fourth is internal and external development. So the four aspects are all equilibriumly developed. It's quite different from other so-called developed provinces in China. So let's see the first about the general picture of Zhejiang economy. So the first let's see Zhejiang. Where is Zhejiang? Where is Zhejiang located? So from this picture, you can see Zhejiang province is located to the east of China mainland, near Shanghai, and to the west of East Sea. And Zhejiang province is small province in China. Its land area is quite small. It has only 105 square kilometers, or it's only 1.1% of China's total land areas. So this is a quite small areas. You know, historically, the development mainly based on natural resources. So according to Adam Smith and David Ricardo, Zhejiang has no natural resources. Or in other words, Zhejiang has not absolute advantage and comparative advantages over the other provinces. In fact, besides the natural resources, since Zhejiang is located to the east of China, it's a coastal province. Since 1949, the central government has limited investment in Zhejiang province, especially in manufacturing industry, heavy industry, almost no central government investment. So remember this figure, 1.1%. It means the natural resources, or an index of natural resources. And its geography and climate. So according to the according to the fact books, even the 1.1% of China's land area, 3/4 of it are mountains and hills, and 1/5 are flat lands, and 5 of its area is covered by water. Zhejiang people said that they have 7山2水1分田, which means that 田 means farmable land. So for the climate, it's subtropic areas. We have clear 4 seasons. For example, today it's winter. Most probably it will snowing soon. And the hottest month in Zhejiang province is July. Of course, the coldest month is January. For Zhejiang province, its population is 55 million. It's about 4.18% of China's total population. So remember this figure I highlighted here, 4.18%, compared with 1.1% of land areas. Here again, I highlight the population percentage is 4.18%. And this figure is climbing. As I introduced just now, every year, Zhejiang will accept immigrants from the other areas of China. They are businessmen. They are coming here to find jobs, to find opportunities. About the general descriptions of Zhejiang economy. So again, you can see this finger. You can see this chart. GDP. Zhejiang's GDP last year, 2019, it is 6,235 billion yuan. It is 6.29% of China's GDP. And its growth rate is 6.8. Compared with China, the total GDP growth rate is 6.1%. You can see from the picture, in the last 10 years, Zhejiang's GDP keep a growth rate higher than 7%. Every year, its GDP is growing fast. About its internal development. In Zhejiang province, as I said just now, historically, Zhejiang province has limited central government investment. So there is fewer state-owned or provincial government-owned companies in Zhejiang province. Most of Zhejiang's firms are private firms. In Zhejiang province, we have 6 million firms, enterprises. And of these firms, you can see 96% of them are owned by families. Besides that, in Zhejiang provinces, after the development of the last 20 years, 96 of China's top 500 civil enterprises are located at Zhejiang province. So you can remember these civil enterprises from Wahaha to Wanxiang to Alibaba. So their civil enterprises are owned by private. And it is resident income and expenditures. For Zhejiang province, last year, average disposable income is higher than 30,000 yuan. So the national average is only 19,000 yuan. Zhejiang's average disposable income is just next to Shanghai and Beijing. Remember, Shanghai and Beijing is not a province. They are big cities. And the average consumption expenditure, it means the consumer's expenditure on everyday consumptions. Zhejiang is 32,000 yuan last year. The national average is only 21,000. Again, this figure is next to Shanghai and Beijing. So this means that, in fact, in Zhejiang province is a wealth province. Its residents has a higher income than most other provinces, and every year they shopping more than other provinces. About Zhejiang's external development, external means that international trade, export and import, and foreign direct investment. So here I list 3 provinces in China. The 3 provinces are all big provinces about export and import: Guangdong, Jiangsu, and Zhejiang. So from the picture, you can find that the three provinces differences. So let's see the general picture first. For Zhejiang province, its export and the import last year is 3,080 billion yuan. So here again I highlight this figure. It is 9.8% of China's total import and export. So you compare the different figures, you will remember, from 1.1% of land area to 4.16% of population and to 29% of China's GDP. And here, the import and export is 9.8% of China's total import and export, of which Zhejiang export more than import. Last year, 2019, Zhejiang export 2,300 billion yuan. It is 13.4% of China's total export. And the growth rate of export, Zhejiang is 9%, while China is only 5%. From the figure, we can also read other very important aspects of Zhejiang's export. You can see for Zhejiang province, it exports about 80% general export. And its compensation export is quite small compared with other developed provinces, Jiangsu and Guangdong. You will see for Jiangsu and Guangdong, their general export occupied a little bit higher than 50%. So what's the difference? We know that general export, in fact, Zhejiang export the product they made by themselves. They purchase the raw materials, the parts, then they manufacture the final product, then they find the market in the world, then export this product. It takes 80%. Compensation export are totally different. Compensation means this export are mainly made by the joint ventures, the foreign investment companies. They import parts, accessories, materials, and process these materials, parts, accessories into final products, then export the final product. In other words, for these two provinces, they have a large ratio of compensation export. These compensation export lift processing fees, lift taxes, lift salaries to local government, to local populations, but no profit. But for Zhejiang, it's different. Zhejiang made profit by export product. And another very important feature of Zhejiang export is that for Zhejiang province, another 80%. Zhejiang, the export are made by private sector. 80% of the export is made by private sector. Compared with Jiangsu and Guangdong, for Jiangsu, you can see Jiangsu, the private sector export less than 50%, and Guangdong is around 50%. So compared with the other two provinces, we can read that in Zhejiang province, we have an active private sector. They not only generate GDP, but also generate export. They export their product and they made profit. The third is FDI inflow. So again, we compared with the other two provinces, Jiangsu and Guangdong. For Zhejiang, in 2019, we occupied 10% of China's total FDI inflow. Well, Guangdong, 60%, Jiangsu, 20%. The three provinces plus together occupied almost half of China's total FDI inflow. So we can see that even Zhejiang is a province that have most of the private firms. However, we still have a great amount of FDI inflow. For industrial structure, here is the comparisons between Zhejiang and China as a total. You can see for Zhejiang province, even we have the same percentage of third industry. However, our first industry have only 3.4%. So compared with China, this means that Zhejiang province has a relatively advanced second industry and a little weak in the first industry. Then equilibrium regional development. So here again in this table, we compared with Jiangsu and Guangdong province. Here you will see the GDP per capita. We use this index to make a comparison. For the average GDP per capita, Zhejiang ranks number 3. Zhejiang is the lowest. However, when we compared with the highest and the lowest, then we can have a sharp comparison. For example, for the highest GDP per capita, Guangdong province is 174,000 yuan. The lowest is only 55,000 yuan. The difference, the margin between the two, is large as 118,000. Well, Zhejiang, the margin is quite smaller. So you can read from this picture, Zhejiang province. For Zhejiang province, every area, their development are equilibrium. Well, the other two provinces, even they have a higher average GDP per capita, and the highest is higher than Zhejiang. However, Zhejiang keep a balanced development. The finger between different regions is quite small. The margin is quite small. So I have described the general picture of Zhejiang economy. We have given the tables about GDP, about export and import, FDI, about regional development. And these figures can help us to understand Zhejiang economy. Zhejiang has limited natural resources compared with Jiangsu and Guangdong province. However, Zhejiang is a developed province in China. And this developed province is different from the other developed provinces because Zhejiang has a equilibrium regional development. And Zhejiang has active private sectors. The private sectors play a very, very important role in Zhejiang economy. And the Zhejiang economy has a high international market dependent. So Zhejiang's economic development are equilibrium, both internally and externally. We have give you a general picture of Zhejiang economy, its location, its GDP, its import and export, and we have said that since Zhejiang has limited natural resources, however, it's a developed province in China, and it has equilibrium regional development, equilibrium industrial development, equilibrium internal and external development, and also equilibrium rural and urban development. And we will discuss these one by one in detail in next week. And now I'll give you a brief history about Zhejiang economy. So for economy, the economy in ancient times is quite simple. It's just only agriculture, hunting and gathering. And if the hunting people, the gathering people, they have surplus, they will make some handcrafts. So handcrafts always means surplus. And if you can make very difficult handcraft, it means you have developed or advanced handcraft industry. In Zhejiang province, the Zhejiang areas, its economic can be traced to about 5,000 years ago. Ancient people here live in Zhejiang province. They have started agriculture, culture, breeding, and handcraft long ago. According to the archaeological discoveries, 5,000 to 9,000 years ago, at Liangzhou, a place near today's Hangzhou, there has already hand-processed jade craft. You can see the picture. The jade craft is difficult to be processed. If you have such a difficult processed handcraft, it is a signal of food production surplus and social organization. You know, this kind of handcraft mainly processed by the noble classes, by the boss, by the head of the tribe. And after that, about 5,000 years ago, He Mudu, a place near today's Ningbo. From this picture is taken from the He Mudu Museum. From this picture, you can see that at that time, He Mudu people, they can build houses by using woods. And very importantly, you see the picture, they can make pottery arts. So we know that pottery, in ancient times, they were using to save food and cooking food. Pottery's discovery means that 5,000 years ago, in Zhejiang areas, we have already advanced agriculture. And about the famous peoples, businessmen, they are superstars in Zhejiang province and Zhejiang areas. I'll give you only a few of them. In fact, there are so many stars that are shining in the ancient sky in this area. A very famous economist and businessman is Fan Li. It's about 2,500 years ago in Zhejiang province, Zhejiang area. At that time, Zhejiang area is called Yueguo. And for this economist, he is, today we call him the godfather of business in China. He's a famous economic thinker and businessman. And this economist, he emphasized the importance of business environment. The environment consists of both natural environment and social environment. If you're doing business, you must adapt yourself to the natural environment as well as to the social environment. And he also paid special attention to market demand. According to a handbook of the history, the book recorded that Fan Li suggests the emperor or the kings to protect the price of grains. And he said, if we have a lower he said that if we have a lower price for the grains, that will hurt the farmers. The farmers will have no motivations to plant. And Fan is not only a businessman, an economist, he's also a politician. He helped the king of Yue to recover his country from Wu. And when he succeeded in helping the king of Yue, he left Yue to Qi, and where he started his business. This is and Zhejiang province, as I said just now, It is a coast province. However, it is a poor province in the history because most of its GDP came from agriculture. However, since Zhejiang is a coast province, since 5% of its land is covered by water, so the transportation is convenience. From Zhejiang province, from the port of inner Zhejiang and the coast port, the cargoes can be transferred and transported to the other cities in China and the world. So many businessmen, they buying items, buying commodities from regional provinces and transported them to Zhejiang province, then distribute them all over the world. Then we have a very famous ancient road. We call it Hanghui Gudao. From this road, the cargoes made and produced in Anhui province are transported to Zhejiang. Hanghui Gudao, even today, is still a very famous trading channel. Of course, today we can transport cargoes by train, by highways, and this ancient road today is a famous tourist route. Every year, thousands and thousands of people, tourists, came here. They climb the mountain and they try their best to go this road. In recent history, another very famous businessman whose name is Hu Xueyan, about 150 years ago. Mr. Hu is an expert at bank business and herb medicine business. So if you visit Hangzhou today, you can still find its location of his business, Huqing Yutang. And Hu is also an expert in public relationships and how to use a public relationship in his business, especially the public relationship with the government. So recently, before 1978, China was a central planned economy. For Zhejiang province, as I said just now, there was almost no central government industrial investment. No central government-owned companies, especially in heavy industry. At that time, agriculture is almost the only industry in Zhejiang. Therefore, it was a less developed province in China before 1978. You can see in the table, in 1978, Zhejiang province contribute only 3.39% of GDP. These figures grows slowly after two years. In 1979, it was 3.88%. In 1980, it is close to 4%. So compared with today, remember I highlight just now, in 2019, Zhejiang's GDP is 6.29% of China. The recent development also could be shown in the industrial structure. You can see in this picture, in 1978, Zhejiang province, its first industry, mainly agriculture, it takes 38%. In the cake, the finger is billion yuan, and the percentage is 78. And has a poor service industry, it has only 19%. Remember the figures in last year, in 2019, the first industry, agriculture, has only 3.4%, while the service industry takes 54%. And the export, for the export, in 1978, Zhejiang has a poor export, only $70 million, only 0.72% of China's total. Compared with last year, 2019, it was 13.4%, a sharp increase. Things changed since 1978. China's reform and open door policy, based on this policy and its later modification, the private property right is respected and protected. Market mechanism has been introduced into economic system. Recall what we defined the economic system. Before 1978, China is a socialism country. Almost all the property is owned by the state or public owned. So the enterprises were owned by the public or state and the communities, no private sectors. And the resources are allocated by central plans. Things changed after 1978. The private sectors are motivated, and they can make decisions about their business by themselves. They can pursue business opportunities, and also they can win profit. Well, the public-owned business is also growing in Zhejiang province, but they are focused on some very important industries, the critical important industries such as railway, highways, and airplanes, airport. Zhejiang province, most of the businessmen are from private sectors. So benefit from this policy, Zhejiang province's private sector has fully motivated. So in 1980s, Mr. Fei Shaotong has summarized a window model. Wenzhou model summarized as small commodity and a big market. And after 1978, Zhejiang has kept an economic growth rate higher than 7% for almost 30 years. 1978, China's economic reformation policy and open door policy is indeed a milestone for China's economic growth and economic development. It's the same for Zhejiang and other developed provinces in China. Besides that, since the economic reformation, private sectors are motivated to do business by themselves. They can make decisions by themselves. They can explore opportunities. Mr. Fei Shaotong summarized the earlier development of Zhejiang and Jiangsu as Wenzhou model and Sunan model respectively. Now these two provinces, they started their economic growth by activating their private sectors. They're doing their business from small commodities or consumer goods such as shoes, belts, costumes, and accessories, and doing domestic and international tradings. Especially in Zhejiang province, they started to produce, to manufacture small commodities and doing domestic business first. At that time, Wenzhou and Yiwu were the famous center for domestic trade. The near provinces, their businessmen going to Wenzhou and Yiwu to purchase product, then sell them in their hometown and earn money. Since the private sectors are motivated, the businessmen found the constraint of economic growth. They found the limitations of doing business. For example, the transportation. Zhejiang businessmen, they have tried their best to overcome these constraints. Wenzhou businessmen, they collect money by themselves and built a railway, a civil railway, owned by private in China. It's the only private railway at that time in China. So remember, 1978 is a very important turning point, and the economic reformation policy, the open door policy, are milestones for China's economic development. Let's back to Zhejiang province. I said that a sharp characteristic of Zhejiang economy is equilibrium development. The first is regional equilibrium development. I have given you some data, give you tables, figures just now by comparing Zhejiang with Jiangsu and Guangdong about their equilibrium development. And this figure is about Zhejiang itself. Zhejiang GDP per capita in 2019 is 107,000 yuan. Well, the national average is only 70,000 yuan. Zhejiang has many top economic strong countries or cities in China. In 2018, it has 21. 2019, 21 again. 2020, 17. You can see from this picture the GDP ranking, GDP per capita ranking. Number 1 is Hangzhou. Its GDP per capita is 148,000 yuan. Next to Hangzhou is Ningbo, 140 yuan. Then Zhoushan, Shaoxing, Jiaxing, Huzhou, Taizhou, Jinhua, Wenzhou, Quzhou, and Lishui. You can see of the 11 areas in Zhejiang province, only Lishui has a GDP per capita in 2019 66,000 yuan, a little lower than the national average. Just remember what we have said just now about Guangdong and Jiangsu. Their lowest GDP per capita areas has a great margin with the average. Then industrial equilibrium development. So in Zhejiang province, in fact, all the 3 industries are developed equilibriumly. The first is about the first industry, mainly agriculture. In Zhejiang province, the agriculture is fine agriculture. It not only produce food, but they use food to produce product. They further process the food. And for the second industry, of the 532 main final products, 336 made in Zhejiang products ranking top 10 in China, of which 56 ranks number 1 and 109 ranks number 2. This figure is 2008. And for the service industry, Zhejiang is famous for its information technology. It's famous for its information industry. At the very beginning, I used Taobao, Alipay, and Alibaba. Taobao and Alipay is the leading companies, leading brand in China. And Alibaba, in fact, it's a leading international platform in the world. Besides Alibaba, we have also NetEasy. That's the internet service provider. And we have advanced tourism resort service. Vertical equilibrium development. Vertical means a comparison between urban and rural areas. Here again, I made a comparison between the two provinces, Jiangsu and Zhejiang. We know Jiangsu and Zhejiang are neighbors. For Jiangsu province, its average income in urban areas is 51,000. In rural areas is 22,000. Average is 41,000 yuan. So you can make comparison by using the numbers of urban minus to the numbers of rurals. And the second is to make comparison between the rural to the average. I use the second. We make a comparison between the rural disposable income and the average disposable income. So for Jiangsu province, this ratio, rural disposable income and average disposable income, which means the rural disposable income is 54.8% of the average. Jiangsu is this picture. But for Zhejiang, it's quite different. You can see for Zhejiang province, we have a higher urban disposable income. It's 60,000, and also a higher rural disposable income is around 30,000, and average is 45,840 yuan. The ratio rural to average is 65.2%. So this ratio tells us that for the vertical comparison, the vertical development, Zhejiang compared with Jiangsu has an equilibrium development. The difference between urban and rural is small in Zhejiang than in Jiangsu province. Another dimension about equilibrium development is internal and external. So here I give you the two figures. The first figure is about GDP trend. The second is import and export growth trend. You can see from the two pictures, from the first picture about GDP from 2011, GDP grows step by step from 32,000 to 56,000. And the growth rate, as I said just now, is around 7%. And about the import and export, from 2015 to 2019, the overall import and export grows gradually from 21,000 to 30,000. the growth rate is a little higher than GDP growth. So internal and external are developed equilibriumly in Zhejiang province. Okay, today I have introduced China economy, which is the background of Zhejiang economy. When we discuss about China economy, we put China in the background of a world integration, global market, and Earth village. For China economy, I said that China is an important economic power in the world. It has the second biggest GDP. It has the second import of the commodities amount, the second host country to attract FDI, the first exporter. And China is a developing country. Even it has second biggest GDP. However, if the GDP divided by its population, the GDP per capita is small. According to World Bank, it belongs to upper middle income countries. And also, economic efficiency is lower. The environment has paid price for the development. Then, in this background of China economy, I introduce a brief picture or general picture of Zhejiang economy. Zhejiang economy is a part of China economy. Compared with the other provinces in China, Zhejiang is a developed province. It has a small land area, a little bigger ratio of population percentage, then a higher percentage of GDP, then higher than 10% of export. And Zhejiang economy is characterized by equilibrium development. For the equilibrium development, today I discuss about its regional development, industrial development, and next week we are also back to equilibrium development in detail. And next week we will also introduce a very interesting characteristic of Zhejiang economy, industry cluster. That's all for today. See you next week.